So, if you've been following some of my recent videos, you might be a bit depressed from all of the AI developments that have been happening in terms of how good some of these AI models are getting, specifically the Meta AI generative model that I just featured in my last video. And I know a lot of you guys are thinking, so what do we do, right? This seems overwhelming. I think a lot of you guys are now starting to see how quickly it's developing. It's definitely not something that we should be underestimating or ignoring or dismissing. But the question is then what do you do, right? How do we remain relevant? How do we sort of stay ahead of this? How do we adapt and use some of these tools? How do we ensure that we don't get just sort of swept up in this massive, wave, this tidal wave of new technology coming into our world? So that's basically what I've been thinking about a lot lately, especially in the last 2 weeks as we've wrapped up our Sync Up event. We talked about AI a lot during that event, had a lot of great questions from you guys that were in person and virtually. And seeing obviously the latest developments literally since that event which was just 2 weeks ago, happen, got me thinking that is really definitely time for me to get very focused on just helping all of us AI proof our music. So that's what I'm going to share with you guys in this video, what my plan is, what I'm basically going to be releasing for all of you guys, and 3 key ways to ensure that we remain relevant as AI generated music starts to creep into our industry, specifically first, the stock licensing industry. I think that's the first place, obviously, we can see it's going to be disrupting, okay? If you haven't been able to see this yet from some of my recent videos or been following the news, I do believe AI is going to be the new stock music, right? Across the board, it's pre-made, it's generic sounding, but, and this is the most important part, it's good enough, okay? I pointed this out in my last video. If somebody had a low quality, or I should say low budget YouTube channel and wanted to make a fun video of their family vacation to the Caribbean, do they really care that the music they're putting in the background that matches a sort of tropical fun vibe was created by an AI generative model or created by a human being? 1 out of 1,000 people probably care about that because maybe they're musicians themselves and they're like, hey, I really want to make sure that a human being gets compensated for me using their music. Most people don't really care, especially on the lower budget of things. They just want something that's cost effective, cheap, fast, and good enough. They're not looking for the most creative, most amazing piece of music for their low budget film or YouTube video or podcast episode, whatever it is. They just want something that works. And AI music is pretty much there. A lot of these models are starting to show that they could definitely add and offer some sort of a competitive product for those kind of environments, okay? So essentially, these low-budget stock licensing sites are first going to be interrupted by this technology, and I do anticipate and predict, participate, I don't know how that word came in there, but I do think that the sort of background instrumental music that's primarily been my entire career, AI generative music can certainly start to creep into that world as well for the TV market, and probably last will be film market. Video games probably on that early side as well. I think some generative models can create some pretty useful video game music as well. Not everything, but anything that just is sort of transactional, behind the scenes, just needs to set a mood, but it doesn't need to have a lot of human characteristics to it. I think AI models can certainly be something that we have to start thinking about competing with, right? So because that's where the AI models are going to probably first land in our industry, AI music will become common, it'll become cheap, it'll be sort of, lower quality, not the higher quality stuff. And so basically what we need to do, especially those of you that want to remain relevant in the sync licensing business for TV and film placements for the foreseeable future and whatever new mediums we can get our music placed in, we need to start positioning ourselves to become the organic premium section of, let's say, like the grocery store. All the other sort of, food that's just sort of generally processed the usual way is usually a little bit cheaper. And then you have this little organic section that's higher priced. It's been sort of procured and generated and sort of processed in a particular way to certain standards. You hope they are, at least the label says they are. And it basically comes at a premium. And so I think that's really a big shift that we all need to start making. I'm definitely having to wrap my head around that as well, because up until now, we've been sort of the unsung heroes, people behind the scenes, sort of anonymous, kind of just throwing out a bunch of music into these libraries and sort of playing a numbers game and just hoping that enough of our music is licensable, that we get tons and tons of placements that sort of even out into a larger amount of royalties that we can start to live off of. That strategy is going to need to change because AI music will be able to cover a lot of that background instrumental, unsung hero, nobody really knows what's going on behind the scenes type of business and music opportunities, okay? So we're no longer the anonymous behind the scenes production music people. We need to start seeing ourselves as sync artists, okay? So we are premium now, okay? We are creating organic, human created music. And that means we need to step up our quality, okay? So we are no longer just playing a numbers game, no longer just cranking out another 10 hip hop tracks, another EDM, album of EDM tracks, or just another straight ahead rock album, something like that. We need to start stepping up what we're offering in this industry if we want to remain relevant. For those of you that can do that or already have something that's really unique and really high quality, I do see amazing, just like open freeway, crazy amounts of opportunities coming your way, because I do think that AI will probably wipe out 70, maybe 80% of our marketplace in terms of the kind of stock loop-based, construction kit-based producer that's already kind of producing music like an AI machine. Their job and their place in this industry is very much jeopardized right now. So you need to, if you're leaning in that direction, I hope that with what I'm going to be offering you guys and with your own efforts, of course, you can step yourself up to no longer think of yourself as just a background instrumental TV music person, but think of yourself as an artist with a brand, with an image, with a reputation. You're now elevated up into a premium position, okay? That's definitely how you need to start seeing yourself and then start changing your approach. And that's what we're going to talk about right now. So in order for you to get into that premium place, I think you have to have these 3 must-haves, okay? Number 1, we talked about this at Sync Up, and I'm putting in some really, really serious and hopefully helpful tutorials about this. But number 1, you got to have a unique, recognizable sound that's specific to you. So when somebody plays your music, or it's placed online or placed in a TV show, somebody in the world needs to go, that's Joe's music, that's Mike's music, that's Trevor's music, that's Jesse's music. We need to really start thinking of ourselves as having a recognizable, unique sound that's specific to us and is not just, like I said before, another EDM album, another hip hop album, another rock album that could be swapped out for any other producer that any other producer could bring. But we really need to make sure that we are thinking about ourselves in terms of, no, I've got a specific sound. I have a certain quality I look for. I have particular instruments, particular styles that I go in, and we'll talk about that. But that's really something that will sort of start to separate you from, the masses out there that are just throwing out generic music that an AI model could essentially replace fairly quickly, I think. Number 2, you are going to have to now think about having a public brand, or, just a reputation is another word for a brand. So yes, unfortunately, this means that we got to start playing with social media. We need to start using social media to our advantage. Now, it does not mean that we need to get sucked into a black hole of worrying about our followers and our likes and, are we sort of running the rat race correctly and getting enough followers. I don't want any of you guys to fall into that trap, because you can't win that game and it'll just drive you nuts and it will not lead you to a place that's very healthy or even productive for yourself, okay? And luckily, because of AI tools like ChatGPT and others, we're going to be putting together tutorials that'll help you take advantage of social media, put yourself out there publicly, show libraries, show music supervisors, show people in this industry that you are a real human being with really unique gifts and talents and a unique spark for your music that they need to consider, and you need to basically be keeping yourself at the top of their mind. What's already been happening with a lot of these larger production music library distributors is they're basically starting to say, this is actually what Trevor from Get It Done Music was reporting to me, is they're basically saying, if you're going to send us any more music with vocals, you better send us along some Instagram social media links, some YouTube links, some Spotify links. We don't just want another anonymous singer on our tracks that we're going to be placing to our TV shows. We want them to have a story behind them. We want them to hopefully maybe even have a little bit of a following behind them, because that's adding extra added value to a TV placement. So a TV show who gets a placement from an artist, let's say, that has even 100,000 followers, which is a good amount, not millions, but 100,000, they know that that artist will talk about that placement for weeks and weeks and months. So that basically a TV show is getting not only a great high quality track, but potentially new exposure to these 100,000 followers of that artist. So this is now the new play that we have to start thinking about. It does not mean, again, you have to spend all of your days worrying about social media. And in fact, I really, really don't want you guys to do that. But we will talk about how you can sort of just use social media to keep yourself in sort of the top of mind of people that could potentially place your music. Number three, you really need to start thinking about adding a lot more human elements to your music. We've talked about vocals a lot on this channel. Vocals are obviously the first thing you should be thinking about, but recording more live instruments, recording more live, percussion instruments, mouth noises. We had a lot of these suggestions in our AI proofing presentation at Sync Ups. For those of you guys that were there, you got a lot more of those specific examples, but more dynamics in your music, having a little bit more of a lifelike recording, live performances, even if you're performing and programming things on your MIDI keyboard, not keeping things too quantized and too on the grid and too robotic sounding, but creating that kind of cool, loose, sort of imperfect human feel to your music. We need to start really going more in that direction so that we are offering something unique and different from what an AI model initially is essentially going to be offering, okay? So those are the three things you got to have: a unique, recognizable sound. You got to have a public brand. Think of yourself as an artist now that really needs to sort of interface with the public and have an image for yourself. And you just have to add a lot more human elements to your music, okay? So basically around those three concepts, I'm going to be creating a whole new series of tutorials and videos and sort of helpful resources for how you can start to AI proof your music, okay? So I don't want you to add a ton of work to your life. This is not something that I think you have to sort of double your workload in order to sort of keep up with this stuff. I'm anticipating it'll take about 10% more of your time and energy. Okay, so not tons and tons of extra work and effort, but definitely a little bit more. But the payoff you can have is, like I said before, is becoming part of that maybe top 20% of producers and musicians that can stay relevant in this industry with this new technology coming on board and see amazing premium high quality placements come your way. Okay. So if you are in Sync Academy, this is definitely going to be coming to you for free with your membership, okay? So I plan to have these released by August 1st, which is about maybe a month and a half from now. And there's going to be a lot of high quality content coming your guys' way, and it's going to be sort of a constantly updated series of tutorials. So it's not like I'm just going to create it once and that'll be it. Because of course, by August 1st, we might have a brand new AI model. And sure, in fact, we probably will have some updates or a whole new company that enters the space. And we're going to have to constantly update this series of tutorials to let you guys know what we think is the best play in terms of making sure that you're staying ahead of the game. Again, right now, AI is not disrupting us. It's not coming into our marketplace. It's not, sort of our competitor right now, but you can feel it, especially you've been watching a lot of my recent videos, you can feel it bubbling up, right? It's still under the surface. There's nothing commercial released yet. These are all research papers, research projects. Nothing is being commercialized. There's still a lot of questions about the copyright law. We get into those subjects in our videos here. We'll talk about them more, but it's not quite there yet, but it's certainly bubbling up. And it's just a matter of time. I think you guys can all feel that now before it does pop up and there's going to be a commercial, very usable model that will become the alternative for a lot of the work that we do. So the point of this AI proofing new series I'm going to put together is basically to position ourselves in a better place right now before it comes to us. This is exactly why I've been talking about AI for as much as I have and why I sort of jumped onto this really aggressively very quickly, because I knew this was going to develop much faster than we probably all thought, including myself. And I didn't want to be one of the last people like popping my head up going like, wait, what's going on? Their computers can do what now? Like, okay, where are we now? We're not going to be in that position because we're getting ahead of the game. We're doing our homework early, and we're definitely going to be positioning ourselves for a much stronger place moving forward. So that's my goal with all of these new pieces of content that I'm going to be putting together. And my goal for all of you guys is to sort of help you all level up a little bit and go to that next level where maybe you didn't think you had to or you didn't think you could. I guarantee you, if some effort is put into this stuff, you really can see some high quality improvements in your game. So between those new tutorials and that stuff that I'm also going to be having some awesome community members of Sync Academy and Pro Feedback help me create, I'm going to be focusing on that pretty much for the rest of the year, as well as putting together some more in-person events. I think that's really what we got out of Sync Up is a lot of you guys want more connections, meetups, probably doing some producing, maybe writing camps, maybe also do some sort of direct feedback sessions with some of those library CEOs that were in attendance. That's going to be another cool thing that I want to start to play with and figure out if we can make something like that work. So more, again, direct connection for you guys, human connection between you and music library CEOs, and for us to kind of start to get in the same room together as often as we possibly can to create some meaningful relationships and really all help level each other up. That's really what the name of the game is. So I'm really glad I jumped into AI. I'm really glad that I had, we hosted our first Sync Up event, because I think those two things together have given me my focus now, and I know exactly what I'm going to be doing for the rest of 2023. And into 2024, we'll see obviously where the future takes us. So that's where I'm at. I'd love to hear what you guys think. Do you guys agree with me? Are you seeing that this is something that we should start seeing ourselves as artists, not so much as just production music library composers or producers or behind the scenes people, which is obviously where I was more comfortable in most of my career. And I know change is uncomfortable and odd, especially if we don't initiate the change, but this is the adult in the room decisions we have to make, right? We have to look at the future. We have to look at what's happening, and we have to be the ones that start making these moves. And we want to be disrupting ourselves before AI disrupts us, right? That's the whole sort of theme of what we're getting at here. So I really want to know where you guys are at with this new topic. And obviously these new tutorials. If there's something also specifically you want me to feature in those tutorials, please leave that below. That would be very, very helpful for you. For me, I have a lot of great ideas, but I'm definitely going to be asking you guys through a series of, basically some surveys and some posts I'm going to put out on YouTube and in Sync Academy to ask for the things that you are concerned about for how to stay ahead of this curve and make sure that we are all AI proofing our production music moving forward.